Just recently, I was editing a work in which the scene was taking place in a kitchen. Only I didn't know it was the kitchen until I was almost three-quarters of the way through the scene. Hi, I'm Eva Marie Everson, CEO of Word Weavers International and a best-selling author. If you want to know more about Word Weavers, go to word-weavers.com. And if you want to know more about me, go to evamarieeversonauthor.com. Okay, so in today's episode of Common Mistakes Writers Make, I want to talk to you about not having a sense of place. For your reader to know where the scene is taking place, and this is for fiction as well as nonfiction, is imperative. You don't want to start a scene, let's say, by writing something like they were in the kitchen. But instead, you want to give that sense of time and place, or place predominantly, because the place actually becomes a character. So, for example, if you're writing a work of nonfiction, and let's say it's an article, and it's an article about being at the Daytona Speedway, one of the first things that you might want to talk about is the feel of the air, the salt that's coming in from the ocean, perhaps, the heat, because it is, after all, Florida, the asphalt on the parking lot, the sound of cars revving and racing as they go around and around the track, the cheer of the crowd. There are so many ways that you can introduce that sense of place in a work of nonfiction. And in fact, I want to talk to you for just a moment about one of my favorite nonfiction books. It's titled Walking the Bible. I hope you can see that. It's by Bruce Feiler. I realize that my fingernails were covering it up. But Walking the Bible by Bruce Feiler. Now, let me just give you a little bit of background, because I do want to read to you from the opening lines. But a little bit of background is this. Bruce Feiler was a journalist living in New York City. He was sent to Turkey to investigate a news story. I'll just leave it at that. And as a Jewish man, when he arrived in the Middle East, and I believe this was maybe his first time in the Middle East, he suddenly wanted to reconnect with his religious roots. And so he set about to walk the first 5 books of Moses. And he wrote a book about it. He had a PBS series about it. It was absolutely wonderful. But one of the things that I love so much about this book is just that he always gives you a sense of where he is. He gives you that sense of place. And so allow me just to read a few lines to you from the opening of this book. The call to prayer sounded just after 3 p.m. It came from a minaret, echoed off the storefronts, and stopped me briefly in the middle of the street. All around, people halted their hurrying and turned their attention momentarily to God. A few old men pulled cloaks around their shoulders and slipped into the back of a shop. 2 boys rushed across the road and disappeared behind a stone wall. A woman picked up her basket of radishes and tiptoed out of sight. Part of me felt odd to be starting a journey into the roots of the Bible in a place so spiritually removed from my own. But continuing toward the center of town, I realized my unease might be a reminder of a truth tucked away in the early verses of Genesis. Abraham was not originally the man he became. He was not an Israelite. He was not a Jew. He was not even a believer in God, at least initially. He was a traveler called by some voice, not entirely clear, that said, "Go, head to this land, walk along this route, and trust what you will find." And I think this is a remarkable opening to not only the chapter, but to the book, because you do get that sense of place. You get that sense of being in a town square. You very quickly know that He is in a predominantly Muslim area in the Middle East, just based on some of his word choices that he makes, and that it is a religion, different from his own, and yet so much alike. And he makes these word choices talking about Abraham, who is the father of both Christianity, or all three of Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. He is the father of all three of those faiths. And so he starts off by talking about Abraham. He gives you a sense of where he is and who he is as well. So that's going to conclude today's lesson. When you're writing, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, make sure that you give your reader a sense of place. Until next time, write on.